The jury is in, and a verdict has been reached. Furry little critters from all across rodent land are now standing in total unanimity. The case of the missing cheese, it's got nothing to do with them. They've reached the facts. And if you don't accept that, well, you're just against our system of democracy. They have come to a verdict and you need to accept it. And if you don't, well, basically you're mousist. If you would even suggest the idea that perhaps we should get a cat, not only are you against democracy, you're for the few ruling the many. Because what do we know to be true? There are far more mice and rodents in the world than there are cats. Does anybody get it yet? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? In fact, not only now should we start feeding the rodents, we should banish all cats from the country. Because it could cause harm, right? Now, what does this have to do with anything? Well, we're going to be talking about this a little bit more over at Patreon, but I think this particular image might give you a little bit of a hint as to what the real story is and the game, the psychological operations game that they are playing. You see, because there's really no evidence anywhere of widespread mouse infestation, is there? I mean, forget the fact that it only takes one mouse and one cabinet door left open and an entire wheel of cheese can be ruined. There's no evidence that mice did anything at all. Little nibble marks, that is circumstantial. And once again, a jury of mice has been convened. They've looked into themselves and they have figured out that mice had nothing to do with it whatsoever. You're just a bunch of mouseists. And you need to check yourself, and you need to be more of a fan of democracy. In fact, for having put them through this, you need to feed them. You need to start bringing them a tray of food and banishing all cats. But if you'd like a little bit more on this, join us over at Patreon, where it's only $1 per month, even less if you sign up for an entire year. Fully refundable first 90 days, no questions asked. Now, not only are we doing training videos at the $1 level, we also have a brand new $5 level over there. That's not going to be a training thing. That's going to be more of an informational thing. Vimeo, the server, not cheap, not free, gives us the ability to keep the videos away from Google, away from people that would like to look at them and then take adverse actions against me or any of my viewers. You see, they would have to pay because Vimeo is a private server. So would love to have you over there. Would love to have you be part of the family over there. But the big news of the day. The big news of the day is, of course, the crowning of the King of England. I'm sure a lot of people have varying opinions on this. But there is something this reminded me of that has a lot to do with what's going on here. Because, of course, here in America, people are trying to remind everyone that democracy is the way to go. There's no corruption in democracy. When whole groups, large groups of people get together, that means it's always honest, isn't it? There can be no corruption when there's democracy. I mean, why have one tyrant 3,000 miles away when you can have 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away? What's that from? Oh, that's from a movie, isn't it? Yeah. Some of you might be able to remember that. But there's also another scene that many might remember, but maybe even fewer. It's from Game of Thrones. Now, some are probably scratching their heads. What does this have to do with anything? Well, this particular scene, the elder of the family, Tywin Lannister, is speaking to his youngest grandson. Now, his youngest grandson's older brother was king, but he had just been killed. And so now, Tommen, the younger brother, is going to assume the throne. And so he's having a counseling session with him. And he asks him all these different questions about what kings in the past he thought were right and wrong and the good decisions and bad decisions they made. And he comes down to this final moment where he's standing there over the body of his brother with his mother sitting next to him. And he says, "Do you know what makes a wise king, Tommen? A wise king knows what he knows and what he doesn't. And he was counseling him to attend unto wise counsel. Now, this is a very interesting part in Game of Thrones, which had a lot of seedy images in it, but it was Bible. In fact, the book of Proverbs is littered with this. Let the wise listen and gain instruction. The discerning acquire wise counsel. That's Proverbs 1 and 5. Jumping to Proverbs 11, for lack of guidance, a nation falls, but with many counselors comes deliverance. That's 11 and 14. 15 and 22, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. And then the last one, Proverbs 19 and 20, probably the most well-known one. Hear counsel and receive instruction, that thou mayest be wise in thy latter end. 19 and 20. Now, even though a king may be a good king and have wise counsel, he may fail. This is an image from a remake of the story of Hamlet, written by William Shakespeare, which is really what this is all about. But it's something the feminists don't want you to hear. They don't want you to see this. They don't want you listening to Hamlet and this kind of wisdom, because it will give you a tool and it will give you a weapon to deal with feminism. Because what is the root story of all feminism? Men are failed. Men are flawed. They can't be trusted. They're evil. They do all these bad things. Toxic masculinity. How can you ever trust? Well, Hamlet said the exact same thing to Ophelia in a conversation in Scene 3, Act 1, I believe, after the soliloquy. And this is basically what was said. I know this is small writing, but I will keep this on the screen so you can screenshot it. Read it for yourself, turn it into a postcard, and send it to your feminist friends. Why wouldst thou be a breeder of sinners? I am myself indifferent, honest, but yet I could accuse me of such things that it were better my mother had not borne me. I am very proud, revengeful, ambitious, with more offences at my beck than I have thoughts to put them in, imagination to give them shape, or time to act them in. What should such fellows as I do crawling between heaven and earth? We are errant knaves all. Believe none of us, and go thy ways to a nunnery. You see, this is taking their argument out to its eventual end. If you believe feminism is so wonderful, then no woman should have anything to do with any man ever again and all become nuns. Because if women believe that they've seen in public our true failings and flaws and faults, there are so many others you haven't. If you think you've seen it bad, just wait. Just wait. And we have something later on in the video we're going to show that is going to make a lot of people have to sit down. They think they've seen the worst of it with Dylan Mulvaney. Oh, it's going to get a lot worse. But it's going to be coming from the other direction. Now, funny story, a lot of people give me some grief about pushing the Patriot Nurse so much. In 3 videos in the last year, in fact, her most recent one even, she calls out feminism as the root cause of so many problems. In her most recent one, about a month ago, feminists are to blame. You want it crazy? You got Nashville talking about what happened down there at the school. Then there was the Women's Day, I Don't Want Your Liberation. And there was another one. It was about a year ago. Let's see if I can find it. 38,000 views. The verdict from COVID. Feminism failed. Healthcare sucks. Freedom wins. So anyway, this is why. Identifying this and calling it out and speaking about it takes some guts. It really does. But that attending unto wise counsel and wisdom part, here's going to be some homework. We're going to talk about 2 doctrines real quick. Doctrine of caveat emptor. I'm sure a lot of you know what this is. It means let the buyer beware. It means if you go take your hard-earned cash, you go buy something, and it isn't what you thought it was, or you've got buyer's remorse, or maybe the seller didn't tell you everything about it. Too bad. Well, there's the opposite, caveat venditor. Latin meaning let the seller beware, meaning that if you screw people over, government's going to step in and take away your ability to do business. Now, we're a lot closer in this country to caveat venditor than we are to caveat emptor, because everything in this country has what they call express warrant of merchantability. And that's basically in a lot of things, especially more complicated things. You see the little UL Underwriters Laboratories on toasters and electronics and all that kind of stuff. You aren't in this country allowed to screw people over to that extent. Now, end of the world scenario, all you gold people. This is the homework part. You have your gold and you're out trading and your gold is being accepted for goods and services like you think. And you buy a whole bunch of canned goods from somebody and you give them a little break off piece of gold to cover the cost of it. Now, you get down the road and a day or two later and you've gone through a couple of the canned goods and they were okay, but then the rest of them were all rotten, spoiled, inedible. Many would say you should go back to that vendor. Get your money back. I know in modern times, if I went to Walmart and I bought a bunch of things and got home and they were not edible, I could probably take them all back and they would probably give me at least a store credit, if not a refund. Now, let's turn this around the other way. What other way? Well, what if the very next day after you that vendor of those goods took the piece of gold, gave you the canned goods. The canned goods were perfectly fine this time. In this scenario, the canned goods are absolutely what he said they were. But the very next day, the value of gold collapses to zero. What would you say? Well, I got my canned goods just in time would be what most Americans say. They wouldn't think one bit about their neighbor that now has nothing. Because the day before gold was worth X, and now today it's worth nothing. Well, that's just the risk of business. You see, that would be caveat venditor, wouldn't it? What if the person who was walking around selling gold had actually just done a really good job of plating gold over lead? What about then? And what if he had done a good enough job that gold, the person passed it on to somebody else who passed it on to somebody else, and it was 4 or 5 chains down the road before anybody discovered it? You see, this is the problem. This is the problem that you'll never get around with human beings. Now, what I spoke about earlier, this whole Dylan Mulvaney thing, the whole kid who thinks he's a woman and walks around and dresses and all this kind of stuff, and then the Leah Thomas thing where guy jumps in a pool with a bunch of girls and deprives them of all the hard work. Well, guess what? It's about to get worse. See, this young woman below goes by the name Mac Beggs. Young woman in Texas decided to transition to become a boy, a man, and has gotten so full of herself that she has now challenged an MMA fighter to a fight. A real, actual fight with a real, actual man. Transgender MMA artist accepts former UFC fighter's challenge to fight. I'm going to F you up. Mac Beggs won back-to-back high school girls titles while transitioning. And has challenged Jake Shields. That's who this is. Now, Jake Shields lost in UFC 129 to this guy. I think this is Saint Pierre. I just want you to physically look at these two individuals and then envision in your mind how a fight would turn out. Thank God there are rules in MMA. Not many, but there are. Because that's going to be far uglier than what Leah Thomas did or what Dylan Mulvaney did or the guys up on stage dancing around like drag queens, whatever. That's disgusting enough. But to watch a full-grown man, actual man, beat the crap out of a woman in an octagon, to me, that is far more indicative of the evil of feminism than anything else. You see, this is a level that not even Hamlet, I don't believe, would have fallen to. I mean, he was upset with Ophelia, don't get me wrong, but at that time, there was just a certain level of decorum. That's why he said, I mean, even with his powerful, he was a prince, he was second in line to the throne. Hamlet could have petitioned the king, give me 5,000 men, I want to go conquer that hill over there. And he could have taken those 5,000 men and come back with 3,000, having sent 2,000 to their graves, just because he wanted that hill. You know, that's the kind of power princes and kings had. And for so long in history, we demonized and decried the roles of kings and royalty and all this kind of stuff. Well, what do we see now? How is this any worse? If a king orders it and it happens, or whether it's a president, or, I mean, even England back during the time of the Revolution, they had parliament. In fact, wasn't that the big argument? Taxation without representation? Well, there was representation, was there not? So they had representative government. I mean, the king was the final say, of course, but even he knew. Even he knew, and I think this gives us an indication in the Bible when we see, listen, gain instruction, discerning, acquire wise counsel, lack of guidance, and nation falls. Nowhere have I ever read in the Bible that kings should be deposed and be replaced with solely rule of the mob. Nowhere will you find in the Bible where it is counseled that kings should not be kings, queens should not be queens, and rulers, in fact, it even says submit yourself to authority. But never does it say that the moral and right and Christian and choice of true north, so to speak, is the opinion of the mob, which is what we live under here now. Which brings me back to the very beginning. If you ask the mice, if you ask the mob about the case of the missing cheese, I think you're always going to get a unanimous verdict, aren't you? And that's what we see. Now, here in this country, you can petition Congress to do this or Congress to do that, or you can put this president in or that president in or this other president in, and it's all mice. It's all mice. There's no one that has any authority. It's all finger in the wind. What do all the mice believe? What would be best for all the mice? In fact, there's another. Oh, what did I do with it? This is a Restricted Republic, Lisa Haven, talking about Matt Gaetz and AOC teaming up on this idea of banning members of Congress from being able to invest in the stock market because they have access to all sorts of classified intel about what's going on in the business world behind the scenes and the world of finance. You think the mice are going to vote themselves out of the kitchen? This is basically the idea of the mice saying, okay, nobody can have a hole within 500 feet of the kitchen or 50 feet of the kitchen. All mice, all holes in the baseboard must be at least 75 feet away and no line of sight to the kitchen. Do you think the mice are going to vote for that? Of course the mice aren't going to vote for that. It's ridiculous, isn't it? So, it's why we're here. It's why we're here. 2,000 U.S. banks insolvent. See, this is a much bigger problem. I'm sure a lot more people know about this. But all this ties together. All this ties together. The people that are in charge are also the ones that are in charge of making sure that the people that are in charge are doing things right. It's bizarre. So, anyway, we're going to talk more about that, though. $1. $1 US, that's it. Even less if you sign up for an entire year. Fully refundable. I use the vending machine analogy. I'll use it again. You walk up to a vending machine, you put in your dollar. And for 90 days, you can stand there and you can sample all the things that are in the vending machine. If it's not for you, Every 30 days, you've got to put in another $1, of course, to stand there. So you put in $3, but at the end of that 90 days, you can hit the coin return, and all $3 come back. And at any time in that 90 days, you can say, I want whatever I've put in back first 90 days, having sampled everything in the vending machine. That's the level of risk at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel. Once again, there's also another level over there. If you want to support the channel more, God bless you guys. I very much appreciate it. It's $5 level. It helps me out a ton. It really does. It gives me the ability to have parity against YouTube, but pray about it. That's all up to you, whatever your situation is. I will leave it there. Have a great weekend. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.